Out of cruel space, into a wider galaxy, Part 96, a scion of many worlds. Harold entered into a chamber overflowing with debate. The concept that a god could be born was bothering everyone, and he could barely resist rolling his eyes. If gods can live, then they can start and end their lives. Meaning they can be born. Meaning they can die. The question isn't anywhere near so overwhelming, important, or groundbreaking as the people here seem to think it is. But they are mostly lawyers, used to dealing with both exhaustive minutiae and pleas to both judges and juries. So minutiae and emotions. Not much encouragement for practical thinking there. Observer Wu, we need to remain here in order to actually understand the full ramifications of a divine birth, one of the lawyers argue. The hatching of primals is well documented. The ability to see through a shell or simply hold it up to a light strong enough to illuminate the child growing inside has long been used to test, Harold says, drawing the room's attention to himself. Mr. Jameson, do you have anything to add to these discussions? I've spoken with grandmother, the first primal. The only thing unusual, as far as a primal egg being discovered goes, is that the father is a primal of another species. She suspects it means the Urthani will also begin forming around the child instead of just the Nagasha. Do note the emphasis I used on that word just. The Nagasha were one of the most widespread and prolific species in the galaxy. They have more dedicated communities than we have human beings. So you actually asked her about the events that occur when a primal is born? I did, Harold says. Very long story short, it's a religious event. There aren't enough days in the year to celebrate each primal individually, so instead there is an official day to celebrate them in their major religions. His laying will be celebrated then. We can expect quite the party on the day of his hatching and the eggshell being preserved as a holy relic. We can expect to hear about it from any end of the galaxy, and to be honest, think of this like celebrity obsession, but there's a uniform for the fan club. Is there more? We can expect Lacron to get very, very crowded for a time. Emmanuel's fully grown nature, clear conqueror status, and uniqueness as the first primal Urthani caused many of the other primals to sit back and watch at first. But a newborn Nagasha primal, a young boy, son of the new primal, they will come, and their peoples will follow, if not rush ahead to prepare the way. I suggest we leave before things get too crowded and convoluted. Otherwise, there may not even be the physical space in the star system to squeeze out between the ships. Hence lies the issue. Galactic history is being made. Everything that Emmanuel does is going to make waves on the sort of scale that religions are born from. Literally, no less. Observer Wu begins. However, our duties are to go from undaunted to undaunted and take their full measure. As absurd as what we have learned from and of Lacron, we are nearly finished. A few formalities are all that remain. However, he is still in motion and is only growing more important and influential. The galaxy is in motion, sir, in every way possible. Trite, but correct, Observer Wu says. By the time I get back to Earth with my report, a full quarter of it will be obsolete, and that's if I'm lucky. Then be frank about it. Inform them about how fast the information rots, about the sheer scope of the task they sent you on. They won't accept that. They have no choice in the matter. A man can scream at the sun to try and stop it from rising as much as he likes, but that's not going to stop the dawn. That's nowhere near what the situation actually is. No, it's a much more polite assumption on my part to the practical fact that what they're doing is like a child sticking their fingers in their ears and screaming because they don't want to hear it's bedtime, Harold says. That was filled with contempt. There will be some people that will deny what the galaxy is like even generations after we set up stable and reliable transportation out of cruel space. You know it, and so do I. Yes, and many such people are in power. Yes, you know, the worst part about seeing that some fool has a gun trained on you is knowing you're liable to be shot, almost worse than actually catching the bullet, Observer Wu notes. I didn't know you'd seen combat, sir. My vest saved me, and it was during my first career as a police officer, Observer Wu notes. But my past is of little importance. The true goals are the future. We depart soon, 2 days after the God Emperor of Lakran returns with his Empress and family. Time enough for some final statements from him after he has rested and to break the news of his family growing in size due to the rampant cloning of the galaxy. Considering he just got the news of a primal son, I dare say it will be as the frosting on his gigantic roll of a situation, Harold says. Now, I think there's some more for me to teach your boys in intelligence. Although, before I go, what was the situation you were shot in? A standoff with criminals. A civilian trapped nearby lost their nerve and tried to run. They left cover, so I had to cover them. Brave of you, sir. It was my duty, no more. No less. I'm starting to see why you're trusted with your duties, observer. By your leave, Harold says with a slight bow before turning and departing. He has preparations to make. Healthy daughters and healthy sons. Let the galaxy twist itself into a knot over the other details. My children are healthy, and you are all healthy as well. That's all the news I need, Emmanuel said publicly, and his words were already echoing around the station. So what's the damage? The big moth asks, as his brother returns with an amused look. There's a lyric woman behind him, hidden by his massive frame. Mostly bits of fur are poking out from her bushy tail. Congratulations, you're in the running for gravid sainthood, Horace says. What? Concentrating on the fact your children are healthy when one is a primal? Focusing on the mothers being healthy as well? Woo boy, you've left a lovely impression. Also, I made a friend. Horace explains before sliding to the side to reveal the lyric woman. You'll never guess who she is. Why guess when I can logically deduce? She's the woman who's been setting up the drones, Emmanuel says. What? Hey lady, can you start sending cloaked ones again? I only get a reward when I destroy cloaked ones. Zavia calls over. Number, I wanted to gather data on things, but there's no way for me to gather the data without altering the data, so I'm just sort of giving up on avoiding tainting the data and would like permission to observe. This way I can continue my research without getting in the way of your vacation. What are you studying exactly? Primal physiology? Behavioral patterns and the sociological impact of primals, particularly of a new primal species, she says before running a hand through her hair. I was planning on practicing my drone control to observe festivals and such from afar without interfering. Then you arrived at the station, and I had the perfect chance to gather data, but not the proper tools for it. That explains why the drones are so cheap. You know I could press to have them replaced legally. Or you could politely ask and I could reimburse you for the damages without needing to make this into some kind of legal affair. Would you please pay for the replacement of the damaged and destroyed drones? Certainly, you wouldn't believe how many people would rather choke on pride than use their manners. They're called idiots. I have my pride, of course, but I also know when it's getting in the way. Glad to hear it. Also, I'd say you wouldn't believe it, but you probably would believe just how much money gets thrown at primals for one reason or another. Emmanuel says as he produces a shimmering disc of axiom ride, he then gently flicks through the air. The valuable metal tumbles with an almost supernatural air and directly into the scientist's waiting hands. That should more than cover the expenses of the drones destroyed, custom work included, Emmanuel says as she holds it up to her face with an impressed look. And any amount of emotional damage I could even begin to claim in a court with plenty left over, she says. Before we continue speaking, what is your name? No doubt you know mine, but Dr. Helen Brushtail, as common in name as it comes for a Lyrac, Helen says with a short bow. My doctorates are in psychology and statistical analysis. And what are you hoping to study from me in particular? I wish to categorize your behaviors and attitudes. What from you is a result of what you were taught from your mother, downloaded from your brother, the result of the extreme stresses of conquering a world reduced to primitivism, then administering it, to say nothing of the physical changes you inflicted on yourself, even before your ascension into a primal, where psychologically is the result of the person and his life, and what is the instincts and impulses of an Earthani primal. Your coming alone shifted the psychological profile of your entire species by such a massive degree that many previously immutable facts about the gentle moths have been forever broken. So you're trying to determine where the lines of nature and nurture are, Emmanuel says. A succinct summation, Dr. Helen says before bowing towards Icerison. Primal Nagasha are fairly well understood. They are incredibly far-sighted, intelligent, and psychologically stable. These traits are in their nature and reinforced by the way they are nurtured, to use the same terminology. Now, my primary questions are, do you hold these traits as well? And if you do, are they also in the nature of the Urthani primal? Finally, if they are within both known types of primal, a question for later, for when the Wimpras ascend, as you claim they will, are those traits inherent to primals? And if so, why? Emmanuel asks. Exactly. This is a very long-term project, but it holds important questions that need to be answered. Helen says, and there's a great deal of nodding. I understand, and while I'm not going to tolerate being intruded on or stalked, I do give you permission to study me, Emmanuel says. And the lines are? If I'm in a place where there's a reasonable expectation of privacy, then respect the privacy. Simple enough? He asked. Simple enough. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Understanding just what I'm starting is important. And again, you catch me off guard. I'm going to be going over the footage I'm recording now for so long, and as you do so, more will come in. Such is the nature of active research, Helen says. True enough. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a look at your currently collected notes and observations. See if there's something I myself have missed, Morgana offers, so long as I can look through your own. Of course, I have numerous assistants, students, and observers already looking through things back on Lacran. You're free to join us if you wish to study a little closer to the source. Thank you, but I won't be near Lacran for long. I need to at least try to remain impartial about an actively moving and shifting phenomenon. Phenomenon are we? Horus asks in an amused tone. Well, you humans are rather phenomenal on the eyes, Helen says, looking him up and down. Makes it very hard to stay impartial. I can make it harder, Horus teases, and Emmanuel scoffs in the background. Oh, bug off, you oversized bug. In the hotel room I've rented myself, I'm more concerned that we only have one suite, and the walls aren't thick enough to block out where this may be going. Oh, for the love of... Get started on that drink you owe me, brother. I'm going to need it when I get back. Horus says, plucking Helen off the ground, and as she squeaks, he opens the door. Wait, is this happening? Helen asks in shock. Do you want it to? Horus asks. Yes, I do. Then let's go properly introduce ourselves to each other. At your place, I don't want to scar the minds of the little ones. Then they leave, and after a moment, Zavia looks up to Emmanuel, glances at the children, then rephrases her question before asking. So, with the size difference, how are they? Same way Big Guy does for me, Magrika answers. Wait, you two are still... Yep, Magrika answers. All right, I know my anatomy drawings were pretty sterile, but the sheer size of it, I don't want to know. I do not want to know. Do not tell me. Is that your final answer? Emmanuel asks. Yes. Out of cruel space into a wider galaxy, part 97. This is the nice part. If you are looking for the naughty part, please go to the author's post on Reddit. Thank you, a scion of many worlds. One massive brew made up of on-station grown and distilled ingredients. I also found some local brands of candy to add to the sweetness, Emmanuel says, passing the small barrel full of drink to Horus as he returns. Thanks, Horus says before simply putting it to his lips and drinking the massively alcoholic drink straight and slowly tilting his head back and having more and more and more. One single massive pull, and the man has downed a full barrel of drink, strong enough that Emmanuel had made a point of keeping cold so it wouldn't potentially catch fire. You put your own touch in, Horus notes. Yep, you made it stronger. I did. Joke's on you, I've been playing with my kidneys and liver. I could drink my body weight in bleach and not even blink. God damn it. Don't you mean I damn it? No. He means yes, Sevilla calls out, and Horus points at her with a grin as Emmanuel gives her a betrayed look. She sticks her tongue out at him. Notice you showered, Emmanuel notes. I did. I notice you're all just got back from showing the kiddies how some local things are made. Factory tours are a thing. Nice, nice. Ah, it's been a full day, Emmanuel says. I'm aware. So did you stay the night or were you just constantly working during that booty call? Emmanuel asks. Enough about me. I'm clean in every sense. And it looks like the quintet are still wound up. We're going to a wind tunnel soon, so they can feel like they're flying, Emmanuel notes before clacking his claws together to simulate snapping fingers. Are you still dazed? I can't talk about it in front of children. So you had a good time? Yes. And where is she? Packing. I have a new in-law. It has been my turn for a while. I'm sure. Emmanuel notes, wondering just what in the hell that Lyrac had done. Granted, she was an inquisitive woman who had an entire galaxy's imagination at her disposal for ways to play with a man. There's no telling what she tried, and clearly succeeded, to do with Horus. Scientists play hard. They know all the cheats. Anyway, she's going to be watching. Stop setting me up if I can't take a swing. No, Horus says. You ready? Ease her eyes and asks her little girls as the doors closed. Emmanuel is behind them all and ready to catch in case her little ones not only lose their grip but somehow slip out of their harnesses. The controls for the wind speed are in her hands, and all of her little girls are not only strapped in nice and secure, but holding onto a guide bar for the wind chamber. Ready, I'm ready. Can we please, Mommy? Let's go. Woo! That sounded like they're ready to me, Emmanuel notes, and she smiles at him. All right then. Hold on, dear ones, Sheryl says as she activates the wind. There's some excitement as the breeze starts and then grows stronger. Stronger and stronger and stronger. There is an odd sound that is usually the herald of Emmanuel moving at speed. His fur, being both incredibly soft and borderline indestructible, produces a sound that is and is not normal. It sounds like Rthani fur moving in the wind. But there is an utterly indescribable aspect to it that everyone can hear and no one can voice about it. Apparently, watching her shed has a similar effect on her daughters. It looks and sounds the same as everyone else, but there is something more to it. The wind picks up even further and quickly drowns out the sound of Emmanuel's fur to even her powerful hearing as the girls start giggling. Isarizen's lower body starts to reflexively widen as her ribs open up to catch more and more of the wind, the muscles and ligaments that she has, and her little girls do not working together to shift the very profile of her body. She can see the warmth of Emmanuel start to lift ever so slightly, turning things into a small perpetual dive as his enormous wings catch the wind and start to lift him ever so slightly. The wind increases and little Aziris starts slithering to try and catch more air. A little more wind and they start taking off. The laughter increases as the wind does a little bit more for all five to easily jump up and slowly glide down as they slither in the air. Is it getting hard to hold on? Isarizen asks. No. They all answer as one. Emmanuel mouths the word liars, and she gives him a mildly unimpressed look. His left forward sweeping antenna points towards Sashisa, and Isarizen nods, accepting that the little wriggler is having a hard time holding on. But it's important to play along, especially when there's no real risk of being hurt. He puts his claws up in acceptance, so it's just him being observant. Fair enough. He is new at being a parent after all. Being a little overprotective and honest is far from the worst things he could be. The wind increases and the laughter follows it as things shift. Isarizen is lazily slithering through the air, comfortable and easily capable of maintaining her position in the wind. Emmanuel's wings are angled to keep him just a claw's width off the floor with casual ease. The little girls are hanging on to their anchor bars and laughing as their tails twist behind them in the wind. All the sensation of free-falling, but the ground is the wrong way. Is it always this loud? Masiris shouts over the wind. Not always, but flying can be very loud. You need to move fast to fly, and moving fast means you hear the wind hitting you, Emmanuel answers. Is he right, Mommy? He's right. Wind makes a lot of noise. You remember that storm last week? Very loud, even without thunder and lightning, Isarizen confirms. Told you, Emmanuel says, and Masiris turns her head, enough to stick her tongue out at him. She gets a proboscis stuck out at her and waved around in return. She then takes her left hand to thumb her nose at him and loses her grip. There's a yelp and she accidentally dives down. The padded floor stops her landing from being hard, but her tongue was still out and gets a painful bite. Horizon and Emmanuel are already there. She's gently prying open Masira's mouth and bringing in a gentle touch of Axiom to soothe the pain and heal the wounds even before she can start to bleed. Emmanuel, on the other hand, has his wings wide open and is kneeling down protectively. His looming presence is shifting the wind so that it backwashes against itself to stop things from getting more exciting. Even as Aziris, Sashisa, and Slimas lose their grips, and his wings softly catches each one before their tethers can stop them. Zisi keeps her grip like an absolute trooper, even as Isarazen turns the wind down. As the sheer sound of it fades away, she finishes healing her daughter. There now. Is that better? It's fine, Mommy, Masiri says, and Isarazen nods. Good. Now do you want to keep trying and... Isarazen is cut off as the door into the wind tunnel opens and both Mary and Oleana walk in. Can we? Certainly, Emmanuel says. What, really? You're not mad? You two are goofy and going to need to try a lot harder to provoke me, Emmanuel says. Now come one. This is a predictable windstorm that you can glide in without issue. Sure, Lady Clarity is going to run you both through the ringer when we get home, but for now we're on vacation, so relax. But, Oleana starts to say, I'm not your enemy, Emmanuel asserts. It's just kind of hard to... there's just so much. If feelings made sense, we likely wouldn't have so many, Emmanuel says philosophically. You're looking for danger because things have gone odd. I'm surprised there aren't more people like you. Now, if you want a suggestion, you can be further back in the wind tunnel. This way I'm not behind either of you, and you can both glide as much as you want. Both sisters look to each other, and after a bit of quick gesturing, they do something different instead. Oleana is behind them all with Mary in front and up to the side, effectively flanking Emmanuel. All right then, I'm going to turn the wind back on. Everyone grab your bracing bar. Why don't you need one mommy? You don't have wings, Sissy asks. My tail can stretch out to the side so I can ride the wind. I can fly too, just in a different way, like how your father flies differently from your cousins there. All of us fly in different ways. Uncle Horace says he can fly too, Azira says. He uses a machine to fly, and that's a different way still. There are many ways to fly. Oh, can we try those ways? You used those ways when we all came here? A big machine carrying us all inside it. Dara didn't feel like flying. That's because it was a different way to fly. So of course it feels different, Isarazen says. And there's also the fact that what you're doing here isn't really flying. This is more like falling from really far up, but without the danger of a hard landing that really hurts, Emmanuel says. Make sense? So the reason you don't need a bar is because this is making it so we're falling, but not falling that way. And since you, Mommy, and those two can fly, you're moving different. Sashisa puzzles out and Emmanuel nods. That's right. And their names are Mary II and Oleana. Emmanuel confirms, pointing from one to the other. Any other questions? Why are there so many different ways of flying? Because they all work in different ways that don't work together. Your mother flies without wings. If I tried that, I would fall. Me and your cousins, Mary and Oleana, fly with wings. But if I was to flap my wings the way they flap theirs, I would fall. And if they were to flap their wings the way I flap mine, they would fall. But what's the right way? All of them. You can have many different answers that are all right when it comes to some things. Oh, but wait, there's only one right answer with things like math. Yes, math is one of those things where there's usually only one right answer. Out of cruel space into a wider galaxy, Part 98, a scion of many worlds. Gotcha, the officer says, pouncing on the correct target. Then immediately a pair of arms wrap around his stomach and he's hauled backwards into a suplex. The hollow chamber dispels as he hits the ground and he rolls to the side with a moan of pain. He looks up into the more monkey-like face of the man who just slammed him. The bright and eager smile of the stranger falls before he pulls out his face to remove a flawless latex mask and reveal the plain and dull face of Harold Armory Jameson. See? Not so easy, is it? Even with Axiom sensing nothing is foolproof. I get it. Can I get up? The intelligence agent asks, and Harold offers his hand to help him. Sure. You're based on a character, aren't you? Lupin III. The irony in this is that the Master Thief character is more the type to wear a latex mask and pretend to be someone else, rather than be the latex mask someone else is trying to be. If we were in a comedy skit, I would remove my face to reveal I'm actually Lupin in disguise about now, the agent notes. That's the spirit, and yes, it would. How is that bit of biting sarcasm the spirit? The galaxy is full of absurdity. If you're willing to roll with it, pay attention and keep moving, that's all you really need. Also a sense of when to get the hell out of Dodge. You can't learn from anything if you don't survive it, Harold says even as he leads the man out. He was the last little test for today's initial practical demonstration. The rest of the agents, all 63 of them, in the 119 support staff are chattering when they enter the observation room. All right, boys and ghouls, now that we've run all our field operatives through a basic search and capture scenario with me, what have we learned? That going up against the super clone godfighter gets you schooled? Someone asks, and there's some chuckling. Usually, but not always. I was more thinking about things that aren't schoolyard smack talk. Harold asks. The only Axiom technique you used was to suppress your Axiom presence. Beyond that, you used mundane techniques, disguises, and psychological tricks to stay ahead of all opponents. Very good. The point of today's demonstration and practice is to teach you all something very important. While Axiom is an incredibly impressive tool and seems impossibly powerful, it's not the be-all and all of anything. It has weaknesses, and one of the biggest mistakes any Axiom user can make is assuming the other person is playing the same game. This is why I've made certain that each of you is armed with tri-tight knives and has at least one full magazine of tri-tight rounds for your pistols. No amount of Axiom power can stop or do anything about a tri-tight hollow point piercing someone's skull. Yeah, but if they know it's coming, can't they harden their skin and just bounce it all off? We've seen you do that. They can, which brings me to the main focus of today's training. We're not done until every field operative is capable of reliably blending themselves with the local Axiom fields, and everyone else has, at the least, a comprehensive understanding of how to do it. This technique can and will consistently let you get the element of surprise effectively at will. With this, you can all but dance behind a target you're following, and they won't know you're there. Really? A lot of them don't pay as much attention to their other senses as they should, as Axiom makes up so much for them. But sidestepping the Axiom, you're effectively slipping out of reality for these people. And what happens when we run into extraterrestrials who actually pay attention to their senses and not the background woo-woo magic power that's fueling everything? That's called skilled opposition. There's no direct counter to it beyond being better skilled, better prepared, and generally sneakier in every way you can. You can only match it as best as you're able when it shows up, Harold says, which this training is indeed part of. Even if they're paying attention to their other senses, they're liable to still use a lot of Axiom and just vanishing to the Axiom. Sense will have them second guess for a moment at the least. Get behind a corner and cloak your Axiom presence. If you can keep out of sight for a few more seconds, they'll convince themselves you've teleported away somehow and assume you're gone. Usually. Generally, if someone's smart enough to keep looking, then we're outside standard operations and need to improvise hard and fast. Really? That's, You should all know by now the biggest trick to stealth is playing with the assumptions and expectations of other people. Every kind of thief, spy, or stealth operative throughout history has had to use all of them. From dark clothing to simply quick change outfits, an enemy uniform, or just refusing to react to something, or even overreact to things. There are countless tricks and techniques to play with the minds and expectations of others. We know that. Do you really have to? The point I'm getting at is that just because there's nonsense magic telling physics to go to the corner, doesn't mean that we don't already have most of this down. The real trick is marrying the two. How to use Axiom to improve to the level we don't need it, which leads to the technique that I made a point of teaching all of you on the way here. Axiom healing. You have had a month to practice it now. Practice the variant that encourages muscle growth. Everyone has mastered it by this point, I hope. We got it in the first 4 days. We know it. Then why in the actual fuck are none of you using it? Harold demands, and there's a pause. You've had a month knowing magical healing powers that would let you build up your muscles better than any and perhaps all the steroids on Earth with no negative side effects. Why am I not looking at a room of strong men and bodybuilders? There's no answer. I have undergone a surgery that reduced me to a skeleton with skin stretched over it. It has been less than a week since then, and I can easily send each and every one of you through the nearby walls without Axiom assistance. You have had a month to use the exact same trick of Axiom healing and all the food you can pound down to follow it. Why haven't any of you done that? You have access to literal space magic and are surrounded by a divine crusade of warriors who fantasize about teaching a man to be strong. Why have none of you taken advantage of this? No answer, but the entire room is staring at him. I know why, he says, looking over all of them. You all have orders. You all intend to go home. You are not in this to win this, and that's fine. But you will not be up to any kind of proper standard if you keep that mindset. The fact of the matter is, while 99% of the galaxy will easily be tricked, fooled, bamboozled, and befuddled by what you can already do, 1% will not. On Earth, that means you don't have to deal with that many, and most such people are already in the game of spies and such, or taking over corporations. Maybe 1 in every 10,000 of any such souls will ever actually be a problem to you. Making people who are an issue a literal 1 in a million. But the numbers are so much higher out here that we're basically dealing with armies of people like that, aren't we? Correct. The galactic population is so enormous that these exceptional souls easily outnumber the entirety of the human species, including all humans that have come before us up to and including the ones that were born from apes and only slightly different than their parents. Harold says, look, I'm not telling you all you need to be gods of stealth, combat, and capable of cold reading a brick wall to put together a crime scene or anything. I'm telling you all that if you don't use all the tools at your disposal, then you will fall behind and you will fail. Perhaps not right away, perhaps not dramatically or fatally, but your trip outside of human space will not end well if you're not willing to play the same game as the rest of the galaxy. And I'm afraid to say the game out here is Axiom bullshit. So what do? Better, you do better. Now come on, follow me. I'm resetting the hollow chamber to give us room to run and explore. We're going to get our cardio in as we practice our Axiom blending. Harold says, why are you so intent on us doing so much better about things? Simple. This world is undaunted controlled. You were on Centris for less than 2 days, and where we're going to next is allied to the undaunted, not under our control. Furthermore, with what's happened there, we will not be there for a short visit, which means you are all going to meet the locals. The locals have a tradition where when a woman comes out the other side of it, fighting her in odds worse than 5-on-1 is legally suicide. I do not want any of you committing suicide because you underestimate a delicate-looking war machine. Delicate as in? Captain Ranky will be announcing the next destination soon enough. I have given you more than enough information to figure it out before the official announcement, however. Consider it your homework to research and find out our destination before we hit the mess for dinner. That's when the announcement will be made. But, come on, the information to answer this was sent to Earth for pity's sake. This shouldn't be hard. Now follow me. Time for you all to get better at running and better at blending. But most of us are admin and research. There is no one alive that won't be served by better conditioning and some subtlety, Harold replies. So what possessed you to run the entire intelligent division 25 kilometers through rough terrain? Observer Wu asks, sounding honestly more curious than upset. Because it took 25 kilometers for them all to actually start using the techniques I've been trying to teach them. And after they started using them, lo and behold, we have them making a full recovery in less than 5 minutes. Now, if the lazy bastards would actually start working out proper, please don't turn my intelligence officers into elite assassins. Are you saying that you won't be better off with elite assassins for an intelligence division? I'm saying we'll be better off with more people that go back to Earth when this is done, and people addicted to the crazy things Axiom can do will not want to go back. All right, fair. I'll ease up. But there are very few ways to keep up without actually using the same techniques and tricks that the rest of the galaxy does. Tying an arm behind your back might be a powerful statement in boxing, but it's a quick way to get your jaw shattered too. I'm aware, ease up. Can I hire temporary help? You can vet them, but having more Axiom-capable agents will make this considerably easier. Such as yourself? Yes. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that in this crusade we have a great many martial adepts and numerous people with differing and still valid interpretation of warrior, including self-trained assassins and spies. With the Lady of War, all forms of warfare are considered, include espionage. I bring a few in, or people these girls recommend, and you get not only Axiom-capable field agents to counter any spies and saboteurs coming for the inevitable, but you get to observe how they operate in the many, many benefits of such. You think the ship may be in danger? I think it would be a very bad idea to try something stupid with a ship that's as much ablative armor as ship. But the thing about bad ideas is that most people only figure them out after trying them. The galaxy is gigantic in scale to the point that even with its massive police force and armies, there are still more hidey holes and sanctuaries for pirates, slavers, and other criminals to hide. You have to assume that unless you're in a well-defended system, that you're at risk of attack, and if there's already a saboteur, spy, or otherwise on board, then our chances of being attacked triple at least, Harold confirms. And you can't sweep them out alone. I can move as fast as lightning and outright teleport, but I can still only be in one place at a time. I can be avoided, but with more people to sweep, we can at least secure the ship. All right then, I have orders for you, Observer Wu says, and Harold nods. You are to recruit a defensive intelligence force to buffer our security on the Axiom side of things. I would prefer if they are not already Undaunted, affiliated as I am in fact in the process of evaluating the Undaunted, and would prefer to focus on one side or another at a time. So any Undaunted forces beyond yourself will be temporary hires at best. Understand? Understood, sir. I'm willing to. Serbo, someone calls, and the intelligence agent that Harold suplexed earlier skids in and staggers as he sees Observer Wu. What's this? Serbo, Consultant Jameson challenged us to figure out our next destination by dropping some hints. And how do you know? Observer Wu asks, and Harold slowly turns back to him with a raised eyebrow. None of that mysterious nonsense. Answer me directly. When I sweep for hostile bugs, which I do often, I leave behind bugs of my own to hopefully catch potential saboteurs and spies in the act. I have the whole ship wired at this point, and I know everything that goes on here. Harold explains, and Observer Wu pinches the bridge of his nose in frustration. The bathrooms? The agent asks in horror. Sound, Axiom, thermal, and chemical only. I'm not a peeping Tom, because 4 different kinds of sensors near the toilets isn't an invasion of privacy. Oh, it is. Much like how your sodium levels are through the roof. Jesus fucking Christ, wait. No, they're not. Aren't they? It's almost like my scanners are going for something else, like detecting dangerous gases, chemicals, or a potential slobe infiltration, Harold says, and Observer Wu sighs. Okay, back up. Consultant Jameson, have you compromised the security of the inevitable? I have not. In what capacity are scanners and sensors all throughout the ship not a compromisation of the inevitable security? In the same manner that the security cameras, pressure sensors, and thermal sensors are not, sir. They all answer to me and Captain Rangi. As do I. Kixi? Observer Wu pauses at that and considers, visibly thinks about it, and then nods. You are going to teach our intelligence division how to spot each and every one of these devices and all the techniques you use. Then you are going to have them retrieve every last one of them as a practical exercise. Is this understood? Sir, yes, sir. As an aside, I worry about your mental state if you think that bugging this entire ship is somehow an appropriate, wise, or practical thing to do. Considering that I've intercepted no less than 37 infiltration attempts with a minimum of fuss today alone, I am deeply worried that my efforts are inadequate. And you have kept this a secret because? Because my report on it has been shoved to the bottom of the pile that you're dealing with, because I am merely a consultant, Harold says, and Observer Wu gives him a steady look. I truly have made a full official report on the matter. You get one from me every 24 hours at the minimum. I need to return to my office and confirm this, as well as potentially reprimand my administrative assistants. That would be wise of... Harold begins, but Observer Wu holds up his hand. I've had my fill of you for now. Please excuse me, Wu says and receives a salute from Harold that he returns before turning on his heel and marching out. So are we still under orders to remove your devices? The agent asks Harold. I think so, but let's stall it a little to see if my reports change his mind. You really bugged the entire ship? Yeah. How did we not notice? Half of the bugs are phased into solid matter. A device in the wall is one thing. A device seamlessly incorporated into the material itself is another. And the other half? Cloaked mostly or built into little fixtures. Such as, if you want to whisper something to me, say it to the hot water taps. Oh my fucking God. Technically accurate, the primal nagasha of love is a man. Fuck you. Fair enough. No, seriously. Fuck you, this is serious. Yes, it is. No matter where we go, these ships are going to have hundreds of infiltration attempts on them every single day, and any one of them could be the kind of crazy or malevolent needed to do incredible damage to the vessel. I don't have the legal power to properly get the security up while following the rules. So I made a choice between the safety of the ship or following implied orders. I kept the ship safe. But you didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to cause a panic, and then, when no one I was warning spoke to me about it, I realized that my warnings were being either ignored or covered up by bullshit minutia. So I made a choice and kept us as safe and secure as I could. But if you were able to follow my training, you'd figure out my own damn security bits and start covering the weak points yourself. But Observer Wu doesn't want anyone growing dependent or addicted to Axiom, so you can all go home when this is done, which makes my job harder. You should have told us. I can't even get you people to exercise half the time. You don't like that I don't trust you? Welcome to the club. I don't like that I don't trust you. But you haven't done anything to earn it yet. You're shiftless, lazy. You keep dismissing and putting down my warnings, and look, you're doing it now. You're scoffing at this. The hell makes you think that? The fact I can read you like an open book. You think I'm paranoid? Harold snaps at him. He then opens a nearby door, Wei steps into the hall, and his arm snaps out. He grabs something, twists an invisible arm, and starts patting a person down before finding a cloaking device in the collar of a jacket. Revealing an Andinus woman whose stinger tail he traps between his legs to stop her from attacking. Am I paranoid? She was there the whole time? She arrived on the ship 3 minutes and 48 seconds ago. She hasn't had time to do anything yet. So it's true. Humans can see through cloaking. Through solid walls, no less, the Andinus exclaims. Are you starting to get it? Harold asks as the agent stares. Agent Szigeti. Yes. Yes, I think I get it now. Good. Out of cruel space and into a wider galaxy, Part 99, a scion of many worlds. Harold takes a deep breath before finally stepping into Observer Wu's office. It had been downright mirrored by the man's own stabilizing breath. This is not going to be pleasant for either of them. Observer Wu has removed the chairs and is glaring at him over his desk. The reports Harold had written up in front of him as the stern man foregoes blinking. He gestures for Harold to stand in front of him, and he marches in front of the desk and holds his hands behind his back, the at-ease stance. Consultant Jameson. Observer Wu, sir. Consultant, we are clearly having communication issues, and while I appreciate the zeal, thoroughness, and seriousness with which you protect the inevitable, we clearly need to establish both proper command structure and acceptable limits. But first I need to know you fully grasp the situation we are in. So I will begin speaking, and until I am finished I do not want any interruptions. No doubt you will be able to justify many things, but I need to understand that you understand. Is this understood? Sir. Yes, sir. Very good. This conversation is being recorded so that all can see it. For the sake of clarity, you can answer this question. Are you the clone of Herbert Jameson, known as Harold Jameson? Sir, yes, sir. Very good. Now then, for the sake of all clarity and ensuring that your own memory downloads are up to snuff, I will explain the fullness of Earth's perspective. Harold nods. Within the last decade, an alien probe found its way to Earth after a short time, and before full retrieval could be accomplished, it began broadcasting on all frequencies. Radio, digital, and to be frank, more than have ever been practically used at any one point. It broadcasted a language primer, blueprints for FTL technology, and a map of the stars alongside a message in the language the primer translated. This message was too powerful to stop. It overwhelmed many communication hubs the world over, and simply put, was literally everywhere within the first 16 hours of the probe, crashing into the icy waters of the Arctic Ocean between Canada and Russia. Harold nods, recalling how there was a scare of a potential World War III during the first few hours of the probe landing. Herbert had gone to sleep as it had crashed partway through the day, and he still needed sleep, not to mention didn't fully believe it so far. Then the primer, blueprints, and more had been everywhere. It had taken over everything. All public discourse had revolved around the alien message. A miracle then happens. The infighting of humanity abets. We put together our greatest minds, our greatest engineers and architects, and build a masterpiece using the designs and components provided by the probe. Enough for 5 great ships. While this happens, we train men, warriors, more harshly, more completely and more thoroughly than any other force in the wholeness of human history. Their every calorie is monitored, their every second of sleep considered, and every movement calculated to turn men into more than mere mortals. Permission to speak, sir, Harold requests. He knows he's going to be denied, but he has to lodge some kind of protest to that. Yes, the training was unimaginably hard. Yes, the washouts were Olympian, but it wasn't to the level of scientific. There had been too much time in the mud, too much time in the rough and ready parts of things. Too many injuries for that. Too many people whose minds had broken before their bodies did. Bullshit, it was controlled. Denied, Observer Wu snaps. As I was saying, we took these men and indeed some women and made them more than mere mortals. We reactivated, retrieved, and curried favors with living legends and legends long past their prime for a single final great mission. We made more than soldiers, we made more than warriors. We made them capable beyond all others before them. Before you even ask, denied. Observer Wu cuts himself off as Harold opens his mouth. How can they be beyond all others before when Agent Alpha, Agent Omega, Admiral Cistern, Sir Philip, and Madame Stepanova hadn't had a lick of the brutal training, but still were downright better than the rest of the Undaunted? And they weren't the only ones on that level, just the most well-known. We build this miracle ship, crew it with a barely mortal crew, and send them off with our hopes and dreams. Months later, we receive news. A small portion of the crew returns on a newly built fast craft. We are betrayed, the ship has defected, and the information they return with is an insult. It's madness. Worse, it's poorly thought out madness. We've not only been betrayed, we've been betrayed sloppily. So we send out another trusted group, using the seized ship to get some kind of answer. They depart, and when they return, they have been changed. The story of madness is the same, and thankfully we've gotten the next ship. This ship nearly finished. And then we receive an independent communication from beyond. Wealth beyond imagining. Wealth that makes the sheer amount of cargo, resources, and alien artifacts returned by the previous 2 trips seem trivial. In it is a demand by an alien woman, translated into nearly every language on Earth, at which point we started putting in passenger cabins on the inevitable. Harold knows that a lot of this is nonsense, much like most official narratives, so he simply adjusts his stance so that the camera he's spotted can see the sheer scorn on his face. Permission to speak, sir? Denied. At this point, it was very clear that an impartial observer was required to discern fact from fiction and learn about what was going on. Many thousands of agents from every known government agency on Earth were vetted and I was chosen. I have spent my entire life serving humanity. I have endured persecution, smears on my good name, gunfire and worse, all to ensure that the world I leave behind is one better for my dwelling upon it. Harold says nothing. What I have observed since departing cruel space, as the wider galaxy calls our home territory, has taken years off my life. What should have been the best foot forward of humanity has spun off into chaos in every direction imaginable. Worlds have been conquered, religions have been perverted, joined, desecrated, and indeed even founded. Wars, war crimes, to say nothing of regular crimes, and much, much more. The worst of this, however, I can safely say, lies in you and those like you. Observer Wu states, and Harold raises an eyebrow. This had taken a left turn. You don't even seem to realize just how absolutely insane and absurd you and your scenario are. Over the past few days alone, you have violated common sense, sensibility, and laws in regards to not only nature and physics, but judicial as well. You have done so with reckless abandon and a seeming ignorance that anything is odd about you whatsoever. Your installing of a massive blanket suite of spy devices over the entirety of the inevitable is simply the last straw. You are now going to explain yourself for the sake of posterity and in front of the entirety of planet Earth. Very well, sir. What exactly do you want me to explain? My origins? My behavior? The behavior of the other Undaunted? The numerous mistakes, blatant lies, and withheld information in your account of events? What do you want from me? Your behavior to start with. I am an extremely powerful and capable person without a proper identity. I have existed for less than 8 months. I have been alive for just a touch over 1 month. A newborn baby has existed longer than I have from conception to birth. I was literally created to test poisons and biological weapons against the human animal. These tests are concluded. My creators have forfeited all rights and responsibilities to me. I have a mental download from the man I am cloned from, Herbert Jameson. The process in which this was achieved caused me to also gain a smattering of knowledge from numerous members of the Nerd Squad, a semi-official part of the Undaunted, dedicated to axiom research in novel directions. Novel as in time control, the creation of immensely powerful weapons that make heavy use of axiom. They've been trying to create a style or methodology unique to the Undaunted. But the best they've come up with is a series of shortcuts to make the learning of several very finicky and difficult styles much easier to learn and master, which leads to the concern of sudden godlike power in the hands of men who have already proven treacherous. So we're ignoring the numerous mutually exclusive orders that were implied to be treasonous, not to obey, that every single member of the Undaunted received. Your little speech about the creation of the Dauntless and the training of her crew was very pretty, the sort of thing that looks good in a history book. But it ignores the very real facts about it, such as the fact that all of those soldiers could not have been more thoroughly told to never come back if we were given a week-long speech on why we must never so much as look at Earth again, Harold says before taking a breath. And the godlike power? You have a recording of me facing a god, an actual god. Compared to her, I was a toddler with play boxing gloves lightly tapping the ankle of the world heavyweight champion. I was an amusement at most, Harold says. You still won her approval. In the way that the heavyweight champion could instruct the toddler to keep his fists up between punches and nods with approval when the child does so. A fair point. You were manhandled like a toddler despite bringing enough firepower, raw force, and brutality to shatter entire nations. No, I did not. None of the technologies, techniques, or tricks I relied upon would work near Earth. If I were to step foot upon the human homeworld, I would be a very fit and well-trained man. Nothing more. I would not be bulletproof. I would not be supersonic. I would be at my best better than any 2 well-trained soldiers in a straight fight. The third would likely spell my doom, to say nothing of potential sniper fire or simple explosives. Simple, you say, but the point is taken, which leads to our final point of major concern. Your tendency to beg forgiveness rather than ask permission. Bugging a military warship is a crime, one that historically ends with a rather fatal judgment. And failing to appropriately secure a powerful military asset is also a crime, Observer Wu, both officially and against any form of common sense. The vessel is secure, Observer Wu states, and Harold reaches up to his left ear and withdraws a small device. And that is a reporting device, nothing more. There is a function on communicators to record and playback sound. They can do this in real time as well, effectively acting like a voice amplifier. Please put yours on that setting, and I'll have my earpiece resting on the receiver. This way you can hear what I hear. Without a word, Observer Wu pulls out his communicator, and with only a minimum of gesturing from Harold, he finds the function and places the small earpiece on the receiver. There is a few moments of silence between them. Lower 84392. The device rings out. Abnormality 5 decks below us and towards the front of the ship. Harold translates. What is it? I do not know. I know only that there is an abnormality. Harold replies before slowly turning and facing the relevant direction. Observer Wu quickly activates his console and looks through things in a flurry of movement. Hot water pipe leak. Maintenance is already on its way. Observer Wu notes. That would explain things, Harold states before taking a breath and launching into an explanation. Sir, the vessel is not secure against axiom-based infiltration. While your standard operations are flawless, and indeed the ship would be functionally impenetrable without an enormous amount of preparation and assistance, it simply can't keep pace with axiom-based technologies or techniques. Even using something as simple as a properly constructed communicator has enough computing power to overwhelm standard systems due to galactic-scale cloud computing, giving it so much memory and RAM to act as a proverbial battering ram against our electronic systems. That alone is a catastrophic security weakness. Couple this with teleportation, the ability to phase through solid matter, the fact that not only is invisibility and nigh-flawless disguise easily possible, but for some races the natural state of affairs is just the tip of the iceberg. A probability adept can simply slap a keyboard and somehow input a password flawlessly, to say nothing of the nearly infinite varieties of unique axiom techniques. It's possible to guide a dream that feels so real it can't be distinguished from reality, not quite mind-reading, but capable of basically getting anyone to confess anything. And we are vulnerable to these techniques. You are. You are completely vulnerable to them. Unless you're willing to hit this ship with null on a regular basis, which is illegal in many parts of the galaxy, then you need to use axiom to counter the axiom. Only magic can fight magic? Something like that. But it's more accurate to say that you either need absurd, esoteric, and very, very well thought out tactics and techniques to counter axiom, or directly counter it with your own axiom, Harold says. I see. Anything else, sir? You've clearly not taken down the sensor array you've installed on the ship. Not yet, but if your orders to take it down are not changed after this meeting, then I will dismantle it. I see. Number, you will leave it up, but surrender control of it to intelligence as a whole. Furthermore, you are going to inform the command crew, security, and most importantly, the captain about this. Sir, I need an actual position on the ship beyond basic consultant, unless you want me to have a more or less direct pipeline to you or the captain in my attempts to protect the ship. I need to know for a fact that any alert, message, or alarm I send out will be read and not buried under the day-to-day minutia. Yes, you do. I've spoken with my admins. They have admitted to simply placing their concerns over yours without regard. However, you are one of the people under investigation. To have official authority is a severe breach in protocol and security. By your tone, you have a solution to this. I do, Observer Wu states. My assistants are setting up a secondary message system. It will equal priority to my standard messages. It will be for consultants, temporary crew members, and other such things. So rest assured, from here on out, your concerns will be addressed. Now, are you ready for your orders, Consultant Jameson? Sir, yes, sir. You are to continue aiding our intelligence and security divisions. You are to be completely open about them at all times. Outright announce your actions and decisions to them. Post them on a board. I don't care how you do it. Make sure everyone knows what you're doing. Secondly, get other agents hired to defend the ship from axiom threats. They will have no official authority, but I can arrange proper pay and compensation. Just keep the wages reasonable. Sir, yes, sir. Permission to speak? Granted. Hiring will not be an issue. The galaxy operates on an entirely different timescale. By their perspective, even if your mission out here takes years, it's a part-time side gig to protect the inevitable, and one where they get to brag about it in the end. The harder part will be filtering out our potential candidates, not finding them. Well then, get to it, consultant. Yes, sir. Dismissed. Observer Wu says and receives a salute. Good, the air between them is clear, for now. Out of cruel space, into a wider galaxy, Part 100, a scion of many worlds. The checkout time wasn't calm. The information about their departure had clearly been hacked, and the moment they leave the hotel, Horus snorts at the sight of the red carpet with flower petals being strewn from above. Emmanuel just holds his head in his claw for a moment as Zavia laughs at his discomfort. Oh, come now. I refuse to believe you didn't know this was going to happen. Morgana chides her son. I did, but that doesn't mean I was looking forward to it, Emmanuel notes. All right, people. Time to be massively important and have entire demographics stare at you. Do I need to say best behavior? Oleana starts to say, as she pointedly looks to the bundled-up chaotic quintet in Isarazen's arms. They're fine, Isarazen assures her. Besides, there's nothing to fear. They simply want some encouragement. I just fear them taking it the wrong way. Then clarity is needed. I know, but if one's fears were rational, then we would fear nothing, or everything, either way. Emmanuel says with a shrug. They then finally leave the building, and a cheer erupts. Nagasha choke the streets, but stay off the red carpet they had literally rolled out for them. Urthani flutter through the sky in such numbers that the natural dust that falls from their wings rains down. They move forwards, and there is awe. All right, you've let us have our peace during our vacation. Thank you for it. So what do you want? Emmanuel asks openly. Emmanuel, Isarazen says. What? I'm direct. They're clearly looking for answers, insight, or something of the sort. If we can provide it, then good. Perhaps a little kinder, Isarazen offers, before turning a beaming smile to the crowds. Hello, children. It is good to see you all so enthused at our being here. Is there any way I can help? There is a rush, and one of the first thing that shakes out is a Nagasha mother who holds up a newly hatched little girl who is given a kiss on the brow. An Urthani mother with the double-sized wings flutters down and easily hovers above and to the side, and her well-strapped-in larva watches with awe. An adorable little one, Emmanuel notes before drawing out a fruit from his pocket to hold in front of the babe's face. The proboscis shouts out and impales the bright yellow fruit. He chuckles as the tiny little one latches onto the golden Arlshan fruit and begins to drain it even as they chew on the skin a little. Well, that was familiar, Morgana notes. Yes, you had to keep your students away back to stop me from stealing everything from them I could, Emmanuel notes. I did, Morgana says in amusement. Then there's a sudden cry as Horus raises his arms and then laughs. Oh, come on, have fun. Work the crowd. They're here to find inspiration, to find hope and direction. Just give it to them, brother, Horus says, and Emmanuel gives him the side-eye. It's more about setting an example than playing to crowds, Horus. I'm not a celebrity, I'm an example. I'm afraid it's gone hand in hand, brother. My lord? A voice says, and Emmanuel turns to regard the person. An Urthani, no distinguishing traits such as claws or thicker neck. But that just means they're either a normal Urthani or one with the more robust guts. They're having a hard time hovering, though. Not much practice with the practical flying or using axiom to compensate. He holds out his left claw for them to land on, and they do, balancing with their wings a little. What is? Is there something you need? She starts to visibly lose her nerve as she starts looking around at all the staring eyes in the crowd. Is it, I'm just an accountant. Is that enough? Why wouldn't it be? He turns it back. What? Your life is yours to live. If the job brings you satisfaction, if it brings you enough money to pursue your dreams, or if it supports or builds up your community in healthy ways, then it's fine work to do. Society has so many different parts to it, and we all need to be part of it. Really, she asks. Really. I'm not going to dismiss or besmirch anyone in a vital role, even if it's one that most people don't glorify. Few people give sanitation engineers their proper due, but if they were to stop working for even a short time, most of society would fall apart. Regardless of what society you're in, and when it comes to the proper running of a business, an accountant is just as vital, although tragically ignored when things are going well, and often unfairly derided when things are going poorly. But I feel like I should do more. Then do more. It's your life to live and your choice to make, Emmanuel says before smiling. Miss, for all that we're all on the same journey that is life, there isn't a single one of us that's fluttering down the same path. Not exactly the same path. The whole of the universe is in motion, and there are forces and events unseen to even the most knowing and learned of men and women. In the end, we can only judge as best we are able and make the wisest choices we can. If you think you can do more, then do more. But take care not to stop caring for your own self or for your family and friends. You have a life to live, and living is more than just pushing. Big words from a man who has to be all but forced into taking a break. Horace chides him. I never claimed to be perfect. Taking proper care of myself and letting myself rest is something I struggle with. I admit this. But that doesn't mean I'm ignorant of this flaw. And well, I'm ending a vacation. I dare say that's a good step towards solving it. Whether it sticks or not, who can say? But I will try, Emmanuel says, before turning back to the Earthani woman standing upon his claw. Will you try as well? I shall. I will be better. I will be more than a mere accountant. Don't disregard the skills you've already nurtured. Accounting by itself can accomplish a great deal, Emmanuel says. I won't. Thank you, my lord, the Earthani says as she flutters hard and flies away. That's when the floodgates open. Oh, it's tough to be a god, Horace sings now that they're back in the shuttle and away from the crowds. Do not. Tread where mortals have not trod. Desist. Deified, and it's not even a sham. Please stop. Be an object of devotion. I can vent the atmosphere in here. Be the subject of the Psalms. Must I use force? It's a rather touching notion, all those prayers and those salams. Can you at least stop ripping off a cartoon? And who are you to bridle if they say you are an idol? I'm not a pop star. If they declare you as their god, that's what you are. Are we finished? Yeah, I'm done. Thank God. Why are you thanking yourself? As a reminder, my hands are made of serrated blades. As a rejoinder, I'm ready to rumble whenever you are, God boy. Don't make me sound like some Christian-themed sidekick. God boy, fierce ally to holy man. I think we're getting off topic, Emmanuel notes. We had a topic? No, but I don't want it to be that topic, Emmanuel states. So what do you think the important but not critical message that Harold has for us is? Well, if it's not time-sensitive or critical, that means it's something that can wait, which is why he's waiting to tell us. And also big enough to have ruined the vacation, Emmanuel remarks. You think Earth was blown up? Horace asks. I think that's kind of an all-hands-on-deck situation. Not a, oh, by the way, I got something for you after you're done farting around on vacay sort of deal, Emmanuel notes as he looks over to the main sensor screen and raises an eyebrow. One of his antenna lowers and taps a few buttons to home in on the data. And that's your girl following us, unless someone's hijacked her ship, of course. Pfft, no, I'd have caught something like that on the camera I left behind. There's a difference between a photo camera and a spy camera, and you know it, Emmanuel says. What, you don't think I can do the secret agent routine? You're as subtle as artillery. And you're the master of subterfuge now? Me? I'm the master of tremble before me, brief mortal. Emmanuel jokes, suddenly turning around and holding his claws out in a dramatic presentation. Horace just starts laughing at him. Emmanuel joins in after a moment, and they throw their arms around each other's shoulder. I did need this vacation. It's helped a lot. I had no idea just how tired I was. So is it a man thing to be so weird? Sylvia asked from the entrance. I've seen some knights act similarly. I believe it a more martial thing, Lady Clarity notes. Fun! More! Let's do this! Whee! the quintet announce as they slither into the bridge and start climbing up and all over the two massive men. "Oh, you little rascals, there's no escaping nap time that easily," Issarazan states as she slithers in after her youngest daughters and quickly begins plucking them off their father and uncle. "Perhaps I can take over the piloting of the ship, my lord, so you can help your lady wife in keeping your children out of trouble?" Clarity offers. "Thank you, Lady Clarity. I believe I will do just that," Emmanuel says as he helps pluck off the last Nagasha girl from around his and Horace's upper arm, and then follows Isarasan out. Clarity quickly takes her place in the pilot's seat and begins going over things. She spares Horace a few glances, but says nothing. "You don't have to keep it quiet. I'm not delicate. It's not that I'm keeping it quiet, it's that I don't know what to think, or say for that matter," Clarity states. "Oh? You just forge bonds, just so easily. I thought it was something unique to Lord Blue. Lord Blue Skitterway, I mean. That it was something more poking through. It would make sense after he ascended. Proof that he was always meant to be more. But I've been watching. Paying attention. Just yesterday you upended the life of a woman of learning. Now she follows us to Lacran, despite openly stating that it was not her plan. I saw how the clone, Harold Jameson, I saw how he was forging bonds so quickly and easily. I've seen it in the other Undaunted too. All from men, not limited by species or size. It's disquieting. None of the people involved seem hurt or unwilling, and there's no change to their personality. But it caught me off guard as well." Horace admits she looks at him. "There are chemicals in men, pheromones given off during mating season. Humans like me are always in mating season, but all men and women have them. Then why? It's the numbers game. Aramenta like you, Nagasha like Lady Yssarazan, Matak like Magrika, and almost every other race in the galaxy has so many more women than men. Normally in a group of 101 of a species, the one is a man. That makes little sense. Why would such a thing happen? Again, numbers. You need only one bull to keep an entire herd pregnant. It's much like that," Horace says. "But we're not herd animals. We're not grazing beasts." "No, we're not. But there are more parts as well. I only know a couple. The full list of reasons is a complete university degree by itself. Although if you want to know if it's a series of excuses people are making for the status quo of the galaxy or actually the cause of things, I couldn't tell you. I don't know." "I see. So it's something that simply is?" "For the most part," Horace says. "There's so much about the galaxy that I don't understand. Looking to me for insight into it is like asking a blind man to guide you. Just because something is no cause to not question it," Lady Clarity says after a time. "So you have been listening to Dr. Skitterway." "Hard not to. The woman loves to talk and teach," Lady Clarity says. "You're still looking for some proper purpose since the person you've sworn to protect is immortal, aren't you? I have given over my life to martial prowess, honor, and dignity. 3 great pillars, but now one of them is so lacking. It's not just Lord Skitterway. It's the Lady of War's Crusaders. It's people like you. It's so much. How can I protect anything if I'm little better than a hindrance? A year ago, my mace was a force that was unstoppable. So heavy was the weapon I swung that merely letting the head drop to the ground under its own weight was enough to get many warriors to simply surrender. And then I faced an Urthani who used blades just as heavy, with blinding speed and a master skill. And since then, the value of my martial skill, gained through grueling mace drills for hours upon hours each day, amounted to less and less and less. And now it amounts to nearly nothing. I'm afraid I don't have many good answers to that." "Number you do." "I do. How does one become a Titan?